all day, boy. Be deep.
Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. Khalil Gibran.
Thank you, Huey. And we are back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the What the Frap Pad. Yeah, let's try that again. Welcome back to the What the Frap Pad. Can I do a little cut? Wife, it's been a while. Sorry, producer. It's the rust. Welcome back to the What the Frap podcast. I'm your host, J-ZILLA, and I'm back off of hiatus. Got to stretch my extremities and whatnots. Thank you so much for everyone joining me on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, as well as YouTube. But listen, here's what we're going to do. Before I start this episode, covering pain, I'm going to talk very deeply today. Go ahead and click this link right here, right there in the comments, and We're going to switch this thing over to YouTube, and then we'll get this thing started. So for everyone on Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to just go ahead and step off, and I will see you on YouTube. Yeah, buddy. Maybe one day. Oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and start the show.
This morning, a violent weather outbreak bringing tornadoes to Florida's Atlantic coast.
Now to that urgent and massive manhunt after that deadly mass shooting near Houston. The youngest victim just 8 years old. Police say the suspect. Here at International High School of New Orleans is making quite an impression on the college admission.
Dennis Barnes has gone into 125 colleges and universities. He's also earned millions in scholarships. As for how he did it, well, the teen is very humble and credits hard work and those around.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me, YouTube audience. Okay, so let's just dive right back in. It's been a while. I'm going to be doing some lives on Thursday nights, right at this time right here. We're going to be covering all sorts of things, but I thought it'd be apt or pretty interesting to start with pain. Pain. And the first thing that I think about pain is, you stub your toe or something. Ouch. Right? But I do believe that in that small moment, like all that pain that you're thinking about, I wonder how many of us try to think about pain, extend it way out from that momentary feel of pain itself. And I do think that you kind of start with that line of thinking. I stubbed my toe, that hurt. But then if you go back and review it and figure out why, perhaps you can avoid that pain. But that's one type of pain, right? The pain I want to kind of stick to will be the pain of, sort of mental or even spiritual anguish, right? So there's some good pains and there's some bad pains. But I know there's some old philosophers that would say there's no such thing as bad pain, right? So that means that basically, even the bad pain, you can figure out what to do in order to avoid it later, get some kind of wisdom. I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Extract the wisdom and leave the pain behind. So look, Riley in that video, thank you so much for that. Sorry, not Riley, Huey. Riley is his brother. Huey, when he talks about that quote from Khalil Gibran, I always thought that was one funny that, a boy of his age could quote such a thing on the spot at a funeral. But I thought it really did touch on some really good points, which is that pain being the breaking of the shell, which encloses your understanding. So what I'm going to attempt to do is to try to understand my own pain throughout my life to see if you guys, is there something similar? Is there something that y'all are going through as well? And then maybe we can, I don't know, perhaps help each other heal a little bit. But shout out to Diva. Hey, saying yo down there. Thank you so much for your support. Yeah. Okay. So one of the biggest things that I've come across in my life as far as pain of that spiritual or mental aspect, especially being diagnosed as bipolar 2. And for those of you who may not know, bipolar 1 is when you're up, you feel like, or you're having a manic episode, you feel like you can jump off a building and fly. But here's the thing, you can't. Okay? On the opposite end is the depressive state, right? That's where you don't want to move at all, or you're in bed for 3 days straight and can't even talk yourself into using the bathroom. Simple things like that become huge things, and they're overwhelming, and it's just not a good look, right? So I had all kinds of things happen to where I was going through in and out of these two states without being diagnosed, and I really felt lost, overwhelmed, very, very lonely. It wasn't until my beautiful wife, shout out to her, Ashley, helped me to finally get into some sort of therapy. Therapy helped me see. I think the biggest takeaway that I've gotten is one, the pain is not, or the diagnosis is not a forever one, right? It's not like catching, some sort of disease and then you have to deal with it the rest of your life. This is something that, if treated properly and consistently with lots and lots of effort, you can actually get yourself out of those two states, right? That state of flux, going from one extreme to the other. And so that's what I began working on. And I found out that, if you have a good therapist out there, the idea of therapy is to help you understand how to help you. And so these things are going to be things that are, breathing exercises, exercise itself, better diet, right? All kinds of meditation, stretching, just whatever you can do to sort of, mitigate those swings that you have. And so that's what we aim to do in therapy. And sometimes you actually may be like me and need actual medication. So for me, they did we talked in therapy for a while, and then I got a blood test, and the blood panel showed that, my brain chemistry was actually off. That's a physiological issue that can be treated with medication, and it doesn't have to be forever. And so understanding my pain, its source, that it's not forever, right? These are things that help me get through that pain. And now I feel like I'm in a position to possibly help others just by stumbling and bumbling my way through this, to try to get myself to an elevated, position. And then, perhaps that'll help you in the audience. At least that's the goal there. So when I think about pain, one of my favorite people in the world to listen to is Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. If you guys don't know him, he's a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist. He has been at it for a long time. I believe at this point in his career, going on, I will say 30 years or so. So he has a lot to say, covering a great many deal of, topics about pain and in a very serious, deep, and meaningful way. So what I'm going to do is try to do a couple of clips just so you guys don't get too fatigued, having to listen to me for 9 hours straight, right? But one of the things that he put out was a book. It was the 10 Rules for Life, the antidote to chaos, right? And one of my favorite rules is treat yourself like someone you care about. And I thought this was very interesting because, man, looking back, especially, like, I am the type of person that wants to help people. And I did it, sometimes at my expense. But I think what he's saying in that sort of ideology is to make sure that you are, put yourself in the shoes of someone you love needing help. And what would you do for them? Like, what would you do for a wife or a mother or your children? If they were sick, you would not waste any time trying to do whatever you can to help them get better. So we have a problem where, I don't know what it is, but we just are kind of wired to look at things differently. So when it comes to ourselves, even if it's medication, we don't do a good job of taking our medications consistently. So out of everybody who gets prescribed something, I think research shows about 90% don't take it correctly. And that could be for a whole myriad of reasons. It could be, I can't afford it. It could be, so if you can't afford it, like maybe you're halving the dosages, like cutting the pills in half, or unfortunately in some cases quarters, and trying to save money. You don't feel anything right away, so you just stop taking it altogether, or you take it inconsistently, skipping days, and then maybe your prescription runs out or expires. But we got to start thinking about things in a way where we can try to understand that. And so one of the things he talks about It's exposure there. And if you have some issues, uh, instead of going, sorry, instead of going around the storm or trying to run away from it, you got to think like the bison. The bison is notorious for seeing a storm and then headed straight forward because it realizes that going through the storm actually would take less time than trying to go around or trying to evade it. So this is going to be Dr. Jordan B. Peterson speaking on fear and anxiety, two of the biggest causers of pain, I guess we can say. So we're going to take a quick look at that. And you guys tell me what you think when we come back from this clip.
So to be alert existentially, let's say, or to be fully self-conscious means that you're perfectly aware of your limitations and how you might be hurt. And then to make the decision to move forward into the unknown and the land of the stranger. Anyways, I would say that's one of the secrets to a good life. And I can say that really without fear of contradiction, I would say, because the clinical literature on this is very, very, very clear. What you do with people who are afraid and to some degree depressed, but certainly anxious, is you lay out what they're anxious about, first of all, in detail. What is it that you're afraid of? What might happen? And then you decompose it into small problems, hypothetically manageable problems. And then you have the person expose themselves to the thing that they're afraid of. And what happens isn't that they get less afraid. That isn't what the clinical literature indicates exactly. What happens instead is they get braver. And that's not the same thing, right? Because if you get less afraid, it's like, well, the world isn't as dangerous as I thought it was, silly me. If you get braver, that's not what happens. What happens is, yeah, the damn world's just as dangerous as I thought, or maybe it's even more dangerous than I thought, but it turns out that there's something in me that responds to taking that on as a voluntary challenge and grows and thrives as a consequence. And there's no doubt about this. Even the psychophysiological findings are quite clear. If you impose a stressor on two groups of people, and on one group the stressor is imposed involuntarily, and on the other group the stressor is picked up voluntarily, the people who pick up the stressor voluntarily use a whole different psychophysiological system to deal with it. They use the system that's associated with approach and challenge, and not the system that's associated with defensive aggression and withdrawal.
All right. So again, that was Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. And I think that's an interesting point that he made about voluntarily picking up some sort of, a situation, right? Going towards the situation, towards the storm, just like the bison I talked about earlier. And I think one of the most interesting things about the human brain is it literally cannot distinguish between reality and fiction. So it's wired to control the body physically, but it can be hacked, right? And so what we choose to kind of teach our brain or download into our brain so our body can behave in the way that we want it to, we have to be very careful what we take in, right? Because even people in, let's say, an abusive relationship, they can find themselves tricking themselves into being comfortable in their relationship. I know, like with me, I had a lot of issues with drugs, alcohol, and, women, let's say. And I found I kind of made rules for myself for the rest of the world around me to follow. And what that did was it made me very comfortable, right? And it wasn't until I desired something more than that. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. At the time, I just wanted peace. I just wanted some sort of stability. And this is what brought me into kind of getting rid of a bunch of stuff. I mean, I let a bunch of stuff go. Clothes, shoes, my car. And I went from my little home down there in Columbia, Tennessee, shout out to them, and moved in with one of my best and oldest friends in the whole wide world, Sadiq Ziad, right? And moved into Georgia. And that was the beginning of me kind of going on my journey, right? It was an unknown thing for me. I was comfortable, then I got uncomfortable and started desiring, improvement. Basically, I didn't know it at the time, but I was looking for wisdom. I was looking for what I actually wanted, right? And so in this desire, I traversed into the unknown. I got a job, I worked out, and I got into my Bible. That led me to go celibate. That led me to stop drinking, stop smoking alcohol or anything. And that really allowed my mind to kind of clear itself. And then I was able to allow my brain to adopt to another way of living. So full of discipline, full of persistence, just things like that. So I started to lose a bunch of weight and get in some really, really good shape. I was doing good in my career. I can call it a career, my job. Right, it's the difference between a job and a career. There's a funny comedian who talks about the difference between a job and a career. Is a job is when you're watching the clock count down the seconds until your clock out time is. A career is just quitting time always sneaks up on you. You never seem like you have enough time. So I'm working towards all that. And then I realized exactly what I wanted, which was a wife and a children and the means to be able to support them. And I really felt blessed to, that God gave me that. So that's how I ended up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, by the way. So that was a win for me. Now, I didn't realize at the time that when you go through things like that, there's usually, some sort of price to pay. As Bishop Walker down there in Nashville, Tennessee likes to say, if you're saying yes to something, you're automatically saying no to something else. So one of the first things that I paid for was leaving something I was familiar with, right? The South. Being within driving distance of, my mother, my sisters, my little niece, right? Nephew, shout out JoJo, Juliet, and all those kids. So that was something I had to give up. I didn't realize that would affect me, but later on I will find that it actually does. So there's that. There is looking for jobs, right? And not understanding, because I hadn't finished my education or anything. So not understanding my career, not understanding what I wanted to do with my career. So these are some of the things that you can look at as, having to pay a price for getting basically everything I wanted, right? But once I started to, go through that change and adjust, then I felt the nudge to do something even bigger. It's very funny that once you get in a position of comfort, that you want to branch out for something else, something new. So me having my wife, my children, I got a house, front yard, backyard, garage, and a snack cabinet. These are things that in my childhood that I thought would be the height of luxury, right? And so once all of those were given to me, I was comfortable, probably too comfortable, right? I got that nudge to try to do something else, try to do something more. And part of that is to try to do something like this, which is to, in public, try to improve and hope that can start others to improve along with me. And that's where I'm at now. So that's the change. So everything I'm about right now is positivity and building some type of, I don't know what's a good word for a hive mind, right? So we can fill in the gaps of each other's knowledge, right? There are going to be things that my neighbor knows how to do that I don't, and vice versa. But I believe if we get together and enough of us do that, then we can start to maybe ask the right questions and find some possible solutions and work together to improve our situations, right? I think if I could wave a magic wand with certain limitations, I would try to make the rich richer and the poor rich. Like I really want to have that, rising tide lifts all ships sort of thing. But pain is such a thing that makes you it's such a powerful entity, right? It makes you kind of be stagnant. It makes you not want to move forward, even though you know in your heart of hearts that you probably should, right? And one thing that I know I got tired of, man, and I mean, sick and tired of being sick and tired of me, of myself. And then you get to a point where you want to start to burn off the dead wood of your deficiencies and to make yourself better. And that is not an easy thing, to look at that man in the mirror and say, here's some things that I can improve. I absolutely can improve. And these are the things that I want to work on and grow. So that's where I'm at. The show, listen, I'm a little rusty. I'm going to work on some of these things. I got a bunch of notes and things written off, to the side here. And, that old saying, man plans and God laughs, right? But stay with me. I'm going to do my best to kind of cover some interesting topics, give my take on what we can do in order to improve. And hopefully you guys can participate and help me improve, and I can do the same for you. And we can build that hive mind and, hopefully improve all of our lives. But anywho, that was it. Had to break out that gum knocked the rust off, but I appreciate it. But again, this is the What the Frap podcast. I'm your host, J-ZILLA, and I look forward to seeing you here each week. Peace.
This morning, a violent weather outbreak bringing tornadoes to Florida's Atlantic coast.
Now to that urgent and massive manhunt after that deadly mass shooting near Houston. The youngest victim, just 8 years old. Police say the suspect here at International High School of New Orleans is making quite an impression on the college